Twist. Still alive. Welcome back, everybody. Back to Plot Twist, Still Alive. This is your hostess with the mostest, 3-time cancer survivor and chaos coordinator, Crystal with a K. Thank you guys for coming back. You listened to episode 13 where we went to Costa Rica, and now I am here switching gears and back to our dark humor / real life shit that we always talk about on Plot Twist Still Alive. I want everybody to help me say hello to Lauren. Say hello to everybody, Lauren.
Hello, everyone.
Lauren is here today to talk about a few things, and I think it's really important that we start by saying everyone in life experiences hard shit, difficult shit, and people cope with those things in different ways. Today, we are talking about something that I think a lot of families and a lot of people deal with, but very few people talk about because there's a stigma that comes with it. We're going to talk about substance abuse and alcoholism specifically in your family. I think it's really brave of you to come on and speak about it. I know with my family, I have a lot of people on both sides, mom and dad, that have alcoholism as a thing. I've had to watch myself and worry about it for myself, as well as my kids now. And they're not old enough to drink, but I do think about it, and it's back in my head all the time that I have to be an example for them so that they don't end up the same way, because it's very prevalent in our family. So I don't know, how was your family similar growing up? Did you have either side have it?
Yes. On both sides, for sure. We had that, gene or whatever it is, propensity for alcohol. Myself growing up with my siblings, my two parents, they did not drink to excess. So we had the example of moderation or, abstaining from it. It wasn't part of a daily life. We just knew okay, we have grandparents and, aunts and uncles and things like that, so that it's out there.
Were your parents open with you that other family members were, or is it something that you guys noticed on your own?
Yeah, for sure. 1000%. We knew, we could see it. And so we saw the impacts from people of how it impacted them and family members and stuff. So it was not anything that was hidden or taboo.
I grew up and I kind of had a combination. I did have some people within my home having these issues. And a lot of times I noticed it was more about coping. They were drinking to forget. They might have had a history of abuse or something like that. And so a lot of times it was they drank to escape, and it ended up bringing out all of those emotions and sometimes the bad feelings and all of that came along with it. And obviously that's not a healthy way to cope, but it's also, again, some people don't learn any other coping mechanisms or coping skills. And so,
and sometimes the pain is so great that the numbing of it is what they're looking for. Yeah,
exactly. Again, I'm really proud of you for coming on talking about it. And I do want people to know that though there's a stigma, I think more and more, especially today, even this podcast is a perfect example. There are so many platforms and there's so many places to get help now. And if you are, or even thinking about it, I think one of the first steps, because I've been to therapy and counseling as well, first and foremost, they do alcohol, substance abuse questionnaire. Yeah. And so they want to know, hey, how often do you drink? Do you ever regret things that you do when you're drinking? And what's crazy is I've taken these tests and sometimes I'm like, oh shit, I answered yes.
Yeah.
But then when I talk to my counselor more, they're like, it's not really that. Yeah. It seems like sometimes if you're in a bad mood and you drink, that's probably not a good idea, but you're not drinking to cope.
Yeah.
And so there are other types. There's a multitude of alcoholics as well. There's not just one type, they get hammered drunk every day. Yeah. No, there are some people that don't drink for a whole year and then they drink in excess when they do drink one time at a party and they binge drink. So, and there are people that secretly drink. Yeah, I guess we should just start from the beginning and we can kind of touch those notes whenever we get there. Sure. But we're going to talk about your brother, Bo, right? Yeah. And for the sake of this, as we always do, this is Lauren's story and this is about Lauren's experience, but we never try to use anybody's name because that's their story to tell. Bo is just our little pseudonym for him. Why don't you tell me a little bit about kind of your childhood, I guess, and what you guys experienced and kind of go from there.
I am the baby of the family. I have 3 older brothers, so I am the only girl. And we had a typical growing up childhood. We moved around every 2 years. So there was always transition, in our life. Parents have been together since I was 3. And so, it's been fairly stable other than, kind of the moving around. And
Were you guys military?
no,
Really? Just moved over to you?
no, it's my dad. Every time I got a promotion, he worked for HEB. So.
Okay, cool.
And so this brother Bo in particular has always been quiet, never really like demonstrative of, emotion, and, was always kind of different than my other two brothers in that, they were clowns, and, the attention was always on the older two, and the older two got in trouble quite a bit. And so, the younger two, we kind of
Y'all learned.
Yeah.
You were like, we're not doing,
literally
not getting
what
caught.
not to do. Yes. We were the closest in age. He's 2.5 years older than me. And although we were the closest in age, he was always off with his own friends, and I was a girl. And it was, kind of back in the time where it was like, boys play with the boys and the girls play with the girls.
So wait, you were the only girl in the family with 3 older brothers? Yeah. Damn.
Yeah.
So you never dated anyone till college? I'm just kidding.
Well, no, my husband can tell you quite a few stories.
Plot twist. She has a husband now. It worked out. Okay.
Yes. I do feel sorry for some of the things that he had to endure when he started dating me. Yeah. I could tell you those stories afterwards, but
love it. You can be on the podcast just for that.
Yeah.
Surviving being the youngest
should.
girl.
Not me.
Okay. No problem. I'll talk to him after.
Yeah. We'll set that up. We went to college together. We both went to the local community or local college in the area, and we would have situations where, you'd go to a party. Sometimes he would have a little too much, but it was just like, hey, we're in college, and like everyone in college.
I was going to say, I feel like that's kind of what college is for. Yeah. Which it sucks to say that now, but especially when how old are you, if you don't mind me asking? Like
I am
mid-30s?
41.
Okay, so you're on my age. Yeah. When I was younger, it was just like the thing you did. Yeah. Like you went to parties. It was actually, they put it on fucking movies. Like, everyone gets hammered drunk, do a keg stand. Yeah. And it was just normal. Yes. It's kind of crazy to me because I think this is the first time I've seen a generational difference where like binge drinking is not cool anymore, but we grew up when it was. Yeah. So
very much so. And so there were never any red flags. He did have periods where he struggled with depression. And so those were kind of like worry points for us as a family of how is he doing? He's getting a little bit more withdrawn and things like that. But then he would come back out of it, and he started dating who is now my sister-in-law. And she really pulled him out of his shell and like got him active. And so we really kind of stopped worrying as much about him because he was more engaged in doing things and talkative. And so just kind of didn't ever think about it. Anytime we hung out as a family, we might have had a drink or two as a family, we all would. But again, there was never any periods where anybody got sloppy or anything that would be like a red flag of like, hey, how much have you really had type thing. Just kind of went along with life. He had 2 babies, and he's a bigger boy. He's, 6'4". And we noticed he kind of started gaining a lot of weight, but, we're like, hey, stuff happens. People get busy. They have kids, sometimes it's hard. And he's always kind of struggled with his weight a little bit anyways. We were just kind of going through life. Parents had some health things that we were kind of focusing on more. And one day I get a call from my sister-in-law, and she's like, I'm going to need you to go over to your mom's house, but I can't tell you why. And I'm like, okay, well then why do I need to go over to my mom's house?
Okay, that's so scary.
Yes.
That's, I don't... So you asked questions.
I did. And she was like, I promise I won't tell you, I need you to go over there because I have some news I need to tell you. And your mom's going to need some support. And so I need you to go over there.
Did you think someone was dead?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, because that's what I would
or
think. Or
cancer or something.
Yeah, like we have to sit down and have a talk. Oh,
yeah.
Shit.
And at the time, my mom didn't have a knee. So she was like not mobile at all. And so she wouldn't have been able to kind of leave the scenario when she got overwhelmed. And so I go over there and I call my sister-in-law back, and I'm like, okay, I'm standing at the door. I need you to tell me before I go in there. So I need to know like how serious it is, how to react, like what to do for mom, type thing. And that's when she had said that my brother had been not feeling very well and had a lot of weird symptoms. They took him to the hospital, and in the questioning of the doctors, it had come out that he has been drinking at night, straight vodka, and a lot of it for years now. The symptoms that he was having was his liver was in liver failure, and his kidneys too.
Were you just completely blown away at that point? I mean, you were standing outside of your mom and dad's house,
yeah,
and getting that information, like,
yeah.
What were you thinking as soon as you heard all that?
I was in shock because, again, I have another brother who was also an alcoholic, and all of the signs were there for him. And so it was not at all a shock. We all knew, and we all kind of were like, you need to get help. You need to go rehab, that type of thing. And so for this brother to have an even more, bigger problem, apparently, so much so that his liver was failing, it was like, why did we not see any of the signs? Looking back after it, I'm like, well, he's retaining a lot of water. He's gained a lot of weight. He would just leave for periods of time And, like we'd all be at my mom's house getting together as a family. And he'd be like, oh, I need to go to the store. And he'd be gone for like an hour. I'm like, what are you doing in the store? You know what I mean? And so it was in those periods that he was going and drinking a bunch and then coming back because he needed it.
So there were signs. It's just you guys, they were different than the other brother.
Correct.
So you guys weren't necessarily putting it together until you got this news, essentially.
Correct.
And then that's when you put the puzzle together. You're like, oh my God.
Yeah, because there never were, there wasn't any personality change where, he didn't get mad. There was never any like slurring or stumbling or anything like that. So,
well, and like I said, there's different types of alcoholics. So especially if you've experienced a specific type of alcoholism, you don't necessarily think like if this person's maintaining a job and able to get up and function every single day and you don't see them sloppy drunk, why would you assume that they were an alcoholic or struggling with alcohol? Because I wouldn't. That wouldn't be my thought.
I went in there and, she was on speakerphone. They both were on speakerphone. He was obviously still in the hospital. And he, at that point, was not able to speak because he was still stuck in his shame of like, not only have I been drinking so much and for so long, but now I have to tell my mom. And my mom has always been like, never drink, alcoholics are, she comes from a generation where she doesn't see it as a person with a problem who needs help, like a medical problem. She kind of sees it as like a personal failing. Like
that's who they are. They're a horrible person.
Correct.
Right.
And so when my sister-in-law was kind of sharing what happened in the news, my mom just immediately like starts sobbing and kind of yelling at my brother, like, how could you? I can't believe it. Because now this is her second son who's had a problem. She did not take the news well at all. And, it was hard to try to be there for her, but also to not try to shame my brother even more. Like it was already a hard enough situation for him to even have to go to the hospital and to hear all the things that they were saying at the hospital. And then
to take the step to have to tell you guys, that's difficult. And like to squirrel for a moment, like as a parent now, like me as a parent, I know that for me, I would take it as a failure for myself. Like, what did I do wrong? Like, what's wrong after the initial shock? I would think that. But I also, again, like I just said, like a little bit earlier, I also am very aware of alcoholism in my family. So even though my kids are young, I have conversations about drinking in excess and using drugs and all of those things because I never want my kids to think anything is taboo, even about like sexual abuse and things like that. That is so prevalent nowadays that I refuse to not speak to my kids about it. Yeah. And it had to be hard for him and your other brother if you guys knew that she was going to have this person's a piece of shit. They're whatever, I'm paraphrasing obviously, but like they're a bad person because they're an alcoholic versus they're trying to cope with something and
there's a pain there.
There's something there. Yeah.
We found out later that the doctors really didn't expect him to survive the detox that week. And that's not something we found out until months later. They had told my sister-in-law that, like, prepare yourself. So he was in the hospital for a week and a half detoxing. And I did go in to see him during that time and still very much was in the shame, cried. And I'm just tried to support him as best I can and just be like, it's okay. Like, we're going to get through this. It sucks. We need to deal with it. And the day that he went into the hospital and they kind of told him like, it's a 50-50 chance here that you may not survive. That's the day that he started AA on Zoom and continued to go to like multiple AA meetings throughout this whole process a day to really like work his sobriety. Cause he says that's his rock bottom moment was in that hospital hearing that. So
I can imagine. So I don't know if you know this or not. I was a nurse for a little while and I worked a step down unit for several years in the beginning of my nursing career. And I will say watching somebody detox from alcohol, it's a scary experience, even as a medical professional, because there's a lot of touch and go. The fact that your brother decided to call AA the same day he got that news is actually such an anomaly. I don't know if I've ever had anybody do that. And I watched a lot of people where the hospital that I was at, we actually had a lot of people come in for that, believe it or not. And so to hear you say that is actually, it's beautiful that he did that, but it's also very rare that people do that or that they don't just revert back as soon as they get out. And there were so many people I saw come over and over again for the same things and they'd want to get clean and they couldn't. Huge props given to him for deciding to do that.
Yeah. He was in the hospital for a week and a half and then they sent him home. And they were like, well, your kidneys are not in great shape. Your liver's not in any great shape, but there's not any immediate danger. We're not going to put you on any sort of list right now for donation. We're going to give you some meds and just kind of wait and see if anything repairs. In the months between like April and September, he was always going back to the hospital, getting drained of fluids, trying to like do everything he could, still working his AA, basically just trying to see what his body would do and if it would come back on. And sometime in September, we got the news that they were officially going to be putting him on a liver donation list because his liver just never came back up. Like it was just shot.
So you can still get on a transplant list, because I think that's a misconception. A lot of people that are alcoholics or even drug users and things, that in the past there has been a time where they weren't allowed or people didn't think they were. So is that
well? So from my understanding is yes, you could be on the list because you did need a liver, but you'd be so far down that people who got into car accidents or had like a genuine liver disorder
Like
or
a
something,
birth
they would be
defect or
way ahead of you. And so the
chances are minimal?
Yeah, so slim. When my sister-in-law, can't remember if my sister-in-law, my brother called to tell me that, I was like, okay. And, they were like, well, we're not asking anybody, but we're just like giving you an update on his health because they had done that, periodically. I call my third brother, the oldest brother, and I'm just kind of talking to him and we're going back and forth. And my immediate reaction was, no, I'm not going to go get tested. Like, sorry, but he did it to himself. And I know it's a disease, but like, that's a major surgery and more of one of anger. It was kind of a hard situation because you have to be close enough in size to the person who needs it to be able to donate. So like my sister-in-law was willing to donate, but she's 4'11", he's 6'4".
Right.
It would never be a possibility. My parents were too old. And then they look at siblings. Well, you have a sibling who's an addict, and then you have another sibling who has diabetes. So it's like
it was
literally
only you.
Yeah. So I struggled for probably about 2 weeks and really talked to my oldest brother and was like, I don't want to do it. And no one in any way asked me to do it or forced me to do it. No. And in fact, they were like, we're going to stay out of it. It's your thought process. You do what you need to do. If you want to talk about it, we'll talk. But like, you have to kind of go through your own thoughts and emotions on it. And whatever you decide to do is what you decide to do.
I've never been in your shoes and never had to think that, but in my own thoughts, like even when I've seen people in the hospital or people that need livers, need kidneys, need things, I have been judgmental in my own way and been like, you shouldn't get that over somebody else. I have done that. And so I do think that your anger and your wanting to not in the beginning is valid. And I hope that you, like, if you did hold any feelings about that for yourself, you've forgiven yourself, because I think that's a very human thing to think.
For sure. And, I also had to look at it as in I have my own 2 little kids and like surgery's not without risks. Initially was like, absolutely not. Like,
had you ever had any surgeries prior?
I had a C-section.
Okay. I mean, that's a pretty legit one.
Yeah. Just a little C-section.
I'm sure it was so fun.
Yeah. It was great. It was an emergency C-section too. So it's like, there's no stress, nothing like that.
No, it was perfectly
6
fine.
weeks early.
Just
she's fine.
Exactly how you thought it was going to go the entire time.
Yes.
Totally worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was totally worth it for sure.
The babies for sure.
Yes. But I also let her know at any chance I get like, hey, you know what? I had to like, literally they cut me open to get you out.
For you. You're welcome.
You owe me.
That's right. Maybe a kidney or a liver.
Yeah. So yeah, I had to think about them and just the whole process of like what it entailed. And we had a birthday party here and he would get to the point where he did not have any energy. His body was so swollen with water and fluids that he could sit on the couch for an hour and then he would have to nap. And so we're all living life with his kids. His kids were young at the time. They're similar in age to my kids, just being loud and rambunctious. We're eating and it was really just kind of like a slap in the face of like, he can't even come for an hour without having to take a nap. And at this point he was on disability for work. How is he supposed to like parent his kids? And then I start
That's okay.
like to my niece and nephew. And I was like, I have to try for them. Like if they had to live with a death of a father, a parent, and then also just knowing how he died, I just knew that would impact them greatly. And I didn't think I'd be able to look at them and say, I didn't try everything I could. Like I could have done something, but I didn't. I chose not to. And so it was kind of in that moment where I was like, no, I'm going to go get tested because I have to see them for the rest of their lives. And I want to be able to say that I tried everything I could to give them a father and to give them a life.
So they were your motivation to change your mind, basically.
Yeah.
And I, having nephews and children for my kids, like I would do anything for them just like I would my own kids. I think that would absolutely, even hearing your story, like even trying to imagine putting myself in your shoes, I think that I would have the initial feelings that you did.
Yeah.
But I also, that would be fucking difficult. I can't imagine.
Yeah. And like I said, they're almost the same age as my kids and they all play together so well. We keep them overnight. And so they are like my babies too. And I couldn't do that to them. And I knew also it would devastate my mom. At that point, they had said, you probably have maximum 6 months to live. The clock is ticking and it was now or never. And so I made up my mind And then I had to tell my husband and be like, so I made a decision.
Did you like cook him dinner and shit first? Were you trying to?
No,
make
I
it
don't
like,
cook. He cooks.
You were like, here we go.
No, he does the cooking. No, he knew all the medical updates. He's heard all of them. And so I'm sure he knew before I did that I was going to do it. And I just was like, I've made up my mind because of, these two, like, and my mom, I really think this is what I need to do. And to his credit, he's always been like this. He's never once told me no. Like, whatever I want to do, whatever makes me happy, whatever I feel called to do, he's there to support me. And so
Make a note, ladies. This is what a real man, a great husband is supposed to be like, because that's how my husband is. I had to go through, some practice ones to figure it out, but that's a really supportive, good
1000%. And I think about it sometimes from his point of view. I can't imagine what he went through, knowing what I went through, but just to see the person you love the most and the mother of your children. And so I really give a lot of thanks to him because he picked up for so much during that time frame where I physically couldn't. And he could have tried to make me feel so guilty for it, or, like told me no or refused. And never once did that happen.
Well, I love that for you. And I wish that more people, again, that should be the solid standard for a marriage, period. Yeah. And I'm sure that you are the same with him. I'm sure that if he needed something, you would be there.
Yeah.
That's a healthy marriage. Yes. That's beautiful. And I'm glad you had that, because truthfully, any disease or any issues that health related, even surgeries, it is the whole family impacted. Yeah. It is not just the person going through it. Your kids are watching. You're trying to be strong. Yeah. The other parent is the one kind of pulling the weight that you may not be able to pull. Yeah. And it's a scary situation, especially if nobody's had like your C-section, your baby was a baby, so they didn't know. But if they were old enough to really, I mean, my kids were 1 in 5 through my diagnosis.
And that came into play. So when I made the decision and, told my husband, we didn't tell the kids because I didn't want them to worry. And in particular, my son is like me. He has anxiety. He worries about things. I knew if I told him, he would immediately start worrying about it. And I was like, I don't even know if I match. But I kind of knew, I had this gut feeling like once I made the decision, I knew I was going to match. And I just had to be at peace of like, I'm getting tested. I'm going to match. I will have the surgery. Like there is no other option. I could have backed out even if had I matched, and they wouldn't have told my brother. Like they call you first to tell you that you match, and they wouldn't have told him that I matched, but I changed my mind. They just would have said she didn't match, which I appreciated. But I just had to put some blinders on and make a decision of like, I'm going to get tested. It's going to happen. And so what do I need to do to kind of like prepare things?
It's kind of survival mode though. Like that was the only choice really, because realistically him getting one from anyone else wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
So you were the only shot
correct
of him living. I'm getting chills.
Yeah. So it was 2 full days of testing, blood tests. They do, I don't know what the medical terms are, but they like stick you in a box and then they like scan your liver and you have to sit there for an hour, which I'm not a small person either. And so like being in that small box, I'm like, okay, it's fine. Just breathe through it. Like I'm going to be okay.
I'm not claustrophobic.
Well, I don't think I am normally, but
no, it's scary. It's weird.
You have to meet with a psychologist to prove that you're mentally like okay enough to donate, blood work upon blood work upon blood work. And so it was literally 2 full days of testing. They kind of put a rush on it because they knew that my brother was in great need. And I'm a teacher. I guess they only meet once a week to determine what donations are going to be happening. And so I had blood work done, and it was literally supposed to be like 2 days later they were meeting. And they were like, just so you know, probably won't get to it this week. We'll probably have to make the decision next week. And I was like, okay, but if you could, can we rush this? Because I'm a teacher and it would be great if I could have the surgery before Thanksgiving break. So I have Thanksgiving to recover and Christmas break, because I have to pay for subs to be there while I'm gone. And I don't know how many.
That's how that works?
Well, you have days saved up. Okay. And so if you have days saved up, then great, you don't have to pay. But once you're out of days, then you pay out of your paycheck.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
We need to do something about that. Yeah. We can that's a whole nother podcast, but surviving being a teacher. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I got a lot of stories there too.
I didn't know that either. Yeah. That's crazy. So you told them, hey, I need this because I'm a teacher, pretty please with sugar on top.
Yeah. And so they rushed every single test. They rushed to have it in, and they put itself before the board literally 2 days later. And then they called me the next day and told me that I had matched, and that it was possible that I could donate my liver if I still wanted to. Of course, I said yes, because I knew I was going to, and I knew that was just what had to happen in order for my brother to survive. And then I was like, can I be the one to call him and give him the news? Because, if you're going to have any purse about it, like you might as well tell the person, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah. And then again, reiterate, like, can I have surgery next week? Which, it was for the subs too, but it also was less time for me to panic and less time for me to second guess or sit in emotions or, kind of anything like that. So definitely was intentional for me to get it done like right away.
Well, I want to make a note of that. So that's advocating for yourself and for like, you knew yourself very well. The worst thing that anyone can say to you is no in that situation. Why not ask? People are very afraid to have those conversations, especially in medical settings, because they're like the healthcare professionals or other people need this. There is nothing wrong with asking. And I used to be very guilty of it, but I've watched it in my experience. You're not going to know unless you try or unless you ask. So I give you, again, a lot of props for doing that and being like, hey, can you do this if possible? Because in my experience, when I do ask or ask to rush or try to get it in a time frame, if I tell them my situation, yeah, we might all be numbers to a degree, but if you really make it personal, a lot of times they do want to help you.
Yeah. And I think too, like, it's such a fine game when you need a liver of being like sick enough to need it, but not too sick that you can't receive it, the rest of your body. And so I think that was at play was they kind of knew my brother's side of it and that waiting would not be to his benefit either. And so, there's a lot to plan when you're doing a surgery for them to kind of, I'm sure, put in extra hours to rush to make it happen. I was grateful for that. Once I knew that I was going to have surgery, once I had the date, then we had to talk to my kids about it. And my daughter was too young at the time. She didn't really understand, like, okay, you're going to have surgery. And I even explained to them, not the why, but, that, hey, Uncle Bo, you've seen him, he's been sick, he hasn't been doing well. I have a liver and the doctors say they can take some of my liver and give it to Uncle Bo and it will save him and it'll make him better. And I just feel like I have to do this for your cousins. That was not an easy conversation with my son because he's way too smart for his own age and just all the questions that he had. And me, myself, not even like having answers, just trying to reassure him, like, it's going to be fine. You're going to be with your grandparents. It's worth it for him to be better and to be able to live. Like, it is what it is. The days leading up to, he was, super clingy, couldn't sleep, was having, hard time sleeping. And I could just see his anxiety like ramping up as well. So I was trying to maintain my cool and not be an anxious ball.
It's fine. Everything's fine.
I'm not even like examining anything in my own mind. I'm just like literally tunnel vision.
Yep.
Like, okay, I'm going to have surgery on this day. I got to figure out what we're going to do with the kids. And then they have a schedule. They've got sports to do. They've got whatever. So my type A personality typed up a little thing like, on this day, here's where they need to be. And here's the time, like, drop them off to school, pick them up at this time. Cause grandparents can sometimes forget. Even preparing that, packing their bags, like making that schedule, making sure medicines were there for them. All of that stuff is stuff that I was literally doing. So I could not have to think about how terrified I was or any other emotion. What is the next thing I need to do? That's what I'm going to do. And I'm not going to think about anything else because I can't. Like, I would have just freaked out. I would have been way too scared to even go through with it. And I knew that it wasn't a possibility to back out at that point. I mean, I could have, but I didn't want to. So
yeah, you go in the tunnel. I think that's pretty normal. So from the time you guys got this news, what was the total time that he was like really deteriorating?
We got the news in April, and really it was April through September that he was just kind of getting worse and worse, not getting any better, constantly being drained. And then September was when they told us, like,
6 months.
Yeah.
Oh, so in September, they were like 6 months-ish.
Yeah, like end of September. Yeah. And so I went in for testing in October because it took me a little bit to kind of get on board with that. The surgery was in November. So I actually worked up until the day before. I'm a high school teacher. And so I also had to explain to my own students, like, hey guys, I'm going to be gone. You're going to have a sub for a while. They're not going to be as cool as me, but you'll be fine. I've left plans. That's the other thing is I had to leave lesson plans for every single day that I was going to be gone too, with like links and stuff, like,
which worked perfect for you because you wanted to be distracted from the scary shit that was ahead.
Yes.
Put yourself in the tunnel.
For sure. And I'm great at organizing. So it was another task to like keep my mind off of it. Went into work and my kids were so sweet. They bought me flowers. And they signed cards like, you can do this, you got this. And
high school kids. Oh my God.
I had the best. Yeah. I just remember getting home from work and dropping my son off that night at my in-laws' house. And I was like, oh, we're really doing this. Like, all of the distractions at that point were gone because I didn't have to work anymore. The kids were set. Even kissing them goodbye, I was like, I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure I'll live, but like the anxiety part of my brain is like, oh, what if you die? I'm like, shut up. It's not going to happen, So,
I mean, that's worst case scenario. And your brain goes there.
Yes.
You don't really get to control that.
Yeah.
I think scary shit. And especially, again, if you've only had the C-section that you had, again, was unplanned, you said, and you just kind of have to. You're like, we're doing it.
Yeah.
You don't really get a lot of time to process. This is something that you had weeks, you had months, then weeks, and now it's like day before, and your kids are going, and you've gotten all the things checked off your list, and now you're like, fuck, now I'm in my own head.
Yes. And that was the hardest part. Was I could push it off, I could ignore it, I could prepare everything until I dropped them off. And it was like 6:00, and they tell you exactly what you have to eat the night before. There's this certain soap you have to use. You have there's the very detailed things that you have to do. And they're, I have younger kids, and so they're usually active, and I could focus on them. And then when it's just my husband and I in the house, and it's like, okay, what can I do? Because I don't have the attention span to watch TV. For sure, actively had to try to manage my anxiety. And, thank God my husband's good with that. He knows what's going on. And so it was just a surreal thought of I have to get up at 4 a.m. and, after that, they're going to be literally cutting me open. That is crazy, but it is what it is.
Did you even sleep?
No, not much.
I was going to say,
no,
I wouldn't.
No. And he knew that I was anxious, but I was trying really hard not to cry. And so I remember I had to shower with the special soap that they had. And so in the shower was the first time I actually cried about it, so scared that I cried. And I was like, I don't have anybody around to not cry in front of and pretend to be strong around. This is where crying in the shower is the best.
Shower cry is the best cry.
Yes.
If you listen to my other podcasts, that's literally the car, the shower, and the mirror if I need to cut it short. Because I look really shitty when I cry and ugly. But I am a fucking shower crier queen. I love doing it. Yeah. It is, though. You get that your own space. It just feels like water hitting your face. So you don't know
how much is tears and how much is water. Yeah, and the snot is just, you're just blowing it down anyways. So.
Let it go. Yeah, no. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's so normal. Guys, if you need to, if you're stressed out or anxious, this is your sign. Go take a fucking shower cry.
Pause right now.
Pause
shower
right now. Come back to it. Yeah, that's it. See, that's a great coping mechanism. Yes. You just do a shower cry. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I didn't sleep much, had to get up at 4, had to take another shower with the same soap, cried again. And one thing through the whole thing, I'm on anxiety meds, thank God. And I was very concerned, who is going to give me my meds? Do they at the hospital do I need to bring my own? Because I don't want to have to bring my own, but forget them. And I need them. And you're not supposed to eat. And so they were like, no, please take 1 pill before you come. And I'm like, just one.
Done, son.
Are we sure?
Say less. I'm gonna need it. I'm definitely gonna need it. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a special protein shake you have to, a surgery protein shake you have to drink the night before that was disgusting, but I don't know what it was for, but it's
So preemptively leading up, did you have to do any education on this at all? Would your lifestyle change at all after the surgery? Did they tell you any of that prior, or was that all after?
That was part of the testing process. Yes, they do kind of go through that. One thing I did not know until the day before the surgery, they were going to be removing my gallbladder too.
You don't need that.
No,
but it's very inconvenient to not have one.
Yeah. Apparently they shoot iodine in the gallbladder, and that somehow gets over to the liver to show them where I'm not a medical person, to show them where the veins or the arteries are. And so when they're separating the liver, they don't nick something that they don't want to nick. But in shooting the iodine through the gallbladder, it kind of destroys the gallbladder. So then they just remove it, which that actually is going to come into play in a big way from the healing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. In a big way. And I mean that by big. Just driving down to the hospital, it's 4:00 in the morning, super scared. And once I get there, I know that my parents are going to be there because now they have 2 kids who are going to be in this major surgery. Not just me, my brother too. I knew that I would not have room to act scared, because if I acted scared in front of them, that my mom would not be able to handle it. And I can't imagine from her point of view, having both of your babies on the table in a dangerous surgery. I just knew that I had to be strong for her and for my husband and for my brother, because I knew I was going to see him too. Like I said, I cried in the shower the morning of taking my second shower, and then I was like, that's it. No more tears. We have to put on a brave face, and we have to do what we need to do for other people. So again, me kind of pushing out my own, emotions and pretending they didn't exist just to survive the moment and get through it. So I get to the hospital. It's weird. They didn't even check my ID. And I'm like,
I could be anybody with any liver.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they took my picture when I was testing. So I clearly look like that picture, but I was like, literally, I could be somebody else. I could have a twin sister or something that you don't know. And
so
okay, I sure don't want to check my ID, but they didn't check my ID. And then, they got me in the gown, and I could hear them in, the next room, getting my brother in his gown and stuff like that. And before they wheel you back, they have your significant other. So my husband came in just to say goodbye to me. And I, again, was trying not to cry, because I knew like this shit's about to start. They're about to start wheeling me back. Like, holy fuck. Like it is no backing out for sure now. And I was so scared. And I again did not want to cry. And they were like, okay, you can kiss your husband. And I was like, no, I can't. I don't want to kiss my husband.
Don't touch me with those lips.
Yes. And I'm sure they were like, man, she's going to surgery. She didn't want to kiss her husband. But I just.
It would have just opened the floodgates.
Yes. And if somebody had tried to come for me in that moment, I think I would have just bawled and like broken down. And I didn't want his last like viewpoint of me going into the surgery of me crying.
Yeah, of course.
But they made me kiss him and I held it together. The doctor's like, no, for real, kiss your husband.
Do it. And then you're like, shit, I better. Do it.
I'm not cold hearted. Okay, I'll kiss my husband. I, said goodbye to my brother. There's a picture of us where I'm standing by his bed and I'm like, okay, I'll see you on the flip side. And got back in the bed and, they start wheeling you down the hallway. And I will never forget the doctor who was pushing me before you get to the double doors. He stopped and he was like, okay, I just want you to be prepared. There's a lot of people in this room. There's a lot of equipment and a lot of scary things, but they're all there to keep you safe and to make sure that you're alive. So I just need you to be prepared when these doors open of like what you're going to see. And I'm so glad that he did that because I didn't realize how many people would be in that room, which makes sense. There's a lot of things going on. But the fact that he phrased it as like, they're there to make sure that you're safe and you're alive, it was more comforting than it would have been otherwise.
Scary.
Yeah, for
They
sure.
didn't give you any pre-meds before you went back?
I don't remember.
That's crazy. So I've done it both ways with surgeries. I've had my share. And they actually offered it to me like, hey, do you want a little bit? It's usually Versed. Do you want a little Versed before you go back? And I'm like, yes, please. Because the couple times they wheeled me back and I didn't. And I had to like move myself onto the surgery table.
I had to move myself on the
table. And you've got the light over you. And that's when it starts to really get kind of scary. And then they're like, count backwards with the gas. Well, or at least for mine was. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, fuck. That's why whenever they've offered, I've been like, yes, please. Because
I wish they had offered me. I wish I had a funny story of singing down the hallway, cursing people out or something.
Some Cher, Shakira. Yeah, that's, I guess, just me. But I'm sorry. That sucks.
Yeah, it was not fun.
But I'm glad that person prepared you because
because I'm sure he could see I was freaking out.
Oh, I'm sure.
To be caring enough to try and take me down. And so they wheel me in there and then I have to scoop myself over onto the next bed and they have to give you an epidural because they need to numb your whole system, which I've had 2 before, so I kind of knew the game. And I just remember swinging my legs over the side of the bed and I knew that I was freaking out and I was hooked up to monitors and stuff at the time. And I just started like breathe deep, like in and out. Because I knew that would calm me, like that helps my anxiety. And I know that physically it like slows your heart beating and all of that. And I just remember the anesthesiologist going like, that's great. That's what I need you to do. Keep doing that. Because I was like actively kind of like trying to take my anxiety down a bit. So they give me the epidural and then they lead me back. And he was like, okay, ready to be a rock star? And they put the mask on and then that's it. I don't have any memory after that. But
so your brother was not in the room yet?
No, he is in the room right next to me.
Okay.
So there's a door that connects the 2 operating rooms.
Gotcha.
They did not start his surgery until after mine because they have to open me up first, segment the liver, and then put it into him. And if anything would have went awry, then they didn't want to have him to be open
already.
If something wasn't going to happen with me. If for whatever reason they opened it up and found something, which thankfully they didn't. So his surgery started after mine and took longer than mine too.
So you're on the table, you finally go under, and then how long is your surgery?
My surgery was 7 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I didn't know this at the time, but they send your husband or whoever number you give messages to update you.
To update them.
Yeah. So he showed me afterwards and every like hour and a half, they'd be like, okay, she's gone off to surgery now and she's there, opened her up and they've splitting the liver now. And, like they kept him fairly updated throughout the whole day. Cause 7 hours of waiting for your loved one to come out of surgery. Like I can't even imagine that. And he was with my parents. So he was able to relay that to my mom and let her know as well. So mine was 7 hours. I can't remember how long my brother's was.
Is your husband a good communicator? Because mine, not so much. And mine was supposed to be about 8.5 and ended up being like close to 12.
Yeah.
And he was just like, they say it's fine. They were texting, it's fine. Was your husband a better?
Well, she was there. And so when his phone binged, she'd be like, what did
what's
it say?
going on?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. So he didn't have to communicate, but no, he's not a great communicator in that. He would have been the same. Yeah.
The being helped.
Yeah, for
Got
sure. For sure. So I had the surgery. The surgery went great, according to the surgeons. And the next thing I remember is just really bright blue eyes, like of coming around, and I could see, like, barely see the nurse. That's all I could see between the surgery cap and the mask is just these blue eyes, and her calling my name and telling me, like, come back, come on. And obviously that's, I didn't want to come back. That was nice sleeping like that.
It really is. It's very fucking relaxing.
Yeah.
And then they wake you up and all of a sudden you start getting
You're like,
hit with
oh,
like
shit.
the grogginess, and they're like trying to make you pee and do things. And you're like, I just want to go back to sleep, whatever that was.
Yeah. And so I just remember being in ICU and seeing my husband come in through the double doors. He was the first one to come in. And I was not in very much pain at that time because they give you the good meds and it was still in my system and I still had the epidural in. And so I really was not in pain. And I was like, this is easy. Like,
I could do this anytime. Anyone else need something else?
Yeah, I'll just, it's totally fine. And then my parents came in, I don't know how much longer after that. And I remember my mom standing at the door and just not wanting to come in. And I just remember looking at her over, and I just knew that I had to comfort her in that moment and be like, I'm okay. So I just remember saying, like, I'm okay, Mama, you can come in. I'm right here. Like, you're not going to hurt me. And she came over to the side of the bed and held my hand. And I, again, having two of those kids in that situation, like, I can't imagine her side of that. And I know they didn't stay very long because they were there all day. But she said that was enough to see me and to know that I was, able to communicate that I was okay.
And how strong of you to be able to be in that situation and still be able to put yourself in your mother's shoes as a mom and be comforting to her, because it's hard. It's hard to stand strong when all you want to do, you're still nervous. You still don't know everything that's going on. You guys still don't know if the surgery is going to take, like, there's so many things that come along with this, but to be able to go, let me pull it together. Let me make sure my mother's okay. That's so, I don't know. That just takes an extra type of strength. And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what's the alternative? You know what I mean? Like, one, I was okay. And two, I as a mom, I would want to know that as well. And so I knew she did. It was definitely a moment of, I'm here in the bed. I'm the one that just had the surgery, but I'm still kind of like taking care of others, which is, a trait of mine. But I feel like there's certain scenarios where you need to kind of turn that off and let yourself be taken care of. And I had a really hard time doing that. And
I was going to say, this is one of them.
Yeah.
I get that. I get that completely.
Yeah. Coming out of it, like, I was still not in a whole lot of pain. Obviously I couldn't move. I was in the bed for like the first 12 hours. And I just remember, there was one nurse and she had two rooms, and whoever was in the room next to me, and it was a transplant floor. So, like, that's all they dealt with, I guess, was having issues. And for some reason, and I still don't know what happened, they started calling like a code red, and it was like all hell broke loose, and everyone just ran to the room next door. And in that moment, it like hit me like, oh shit, I just had major surgery. This person next to me just had major surgery, and they unfortunately did not make it.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I was laying in the bed. My husband was there, and you could just hear all the chaos because it was right next door. Like, hear all of the whatever, you've seen the pit, you've seen all the action, whatever. Like, I don't know what was going on in there. I just know that, like, at some point they started shutting off all the monitors, and my nurse did not come back to see me for probably a good 2.5 hours.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And so in that moment, that's when I was like,
that's terrifying.
I was so, and again, that's the first time I actually cried after the surgery. Was like, I have put myself in a situation, and like that there, by the grace of God, that could have been me.
That's worst case scenario, right?
That is worst case scenario.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Cause like I said, it's a transplant floor. So that's all they do is transplants. It's not like it's a ER where, somebody comes in who's on the way out anyways. So,
right. Oh,
so that was,
you poor thing having to sit. That's fucking scary. That's scary.
So I get another nurse while she's gone, collecting herself, as she should, because that's traumatic. And I had a catheter at the time because I still had the epidural in, and they had to change it for some reason. I just remember that she like put my bed up super high, and I don't know what's going on down there. I mean, I know basic female anatomy. Yeah. She sticks something in, and I'm numb, so I can't feel anything. And her face immediately was like, whoop, oh shit. And she was like, I'm going to be right back and get somebody else. And I was like, where the fuck did she put that? Like, what is going on down there that she's calling in reinforcements?
I can say, honestly, it's a little trickier on women than it is men. There's just one hole. With women, you have like two, and depending on your anatomy, it's not always as easy as you think to do. Now, I know for sure what the butthole looks like. I will say that. I will say, typically that one's the easiest one. But anyway, so another nurse
comes in and they have to tilt my bed. So I feel like, I'm sure I wasn't that, tilted, but I felt like my head was practically on the floor and my legs are spread open and they're doing God knows what in there.
You're like, I'm here for my liver, not my lady part.
I didn't think this would be the hard part. Like, what is going on down there? And, I've had kids, so like, I'm used to like, you do whatever you need to do down there. Like, I'm not shy. If you're doing something medical, like, that's fine. Do what you need to do. But I just was like, it was so comical to me of like, I didn't think that was going to be the hard thing. Like,
out of everything.
Yeah.
No, I get it.
Yeah. So
wiping my ass was mine. So
yeah. Well, yeah. I did not
did they finally get it?
Yes. The second nurse did finally got it put back in, and then they were able to put me horizontal again. And I was like, I'm not asking any questions. I don't feel any pain right now. So that is fine. We are just trucking along. Okay. Catheters sucks, but it is what it is. So I think it was like 24 hours after the surgery was when I was finally able to like shuffle around and get up. And so at that time they're trying to get me to pee, and turns out my bladder was still asleep. And so it was not releasing all the way. So I'd have to do this stupid thing where I'd have to, okay, I feel like I have to pee. So now I got to bother the nurse. And then the nurse comes in with this machine that like images my bladder
scanner.
Yeah, to see how full my bladder is. And then I'd pee, and it's only peeing out like half of what's in my bladder. So they know that it's still asleep. They were like, we're going to try and do this for like the next 4 hours just to see if it wakes up. And I'm like, this is such a pain in the ass for the nurse. The nurse is probably like, oh, I gotta do this too. But yeah, it did not wake up. And so I had to have the catheter in for longer than they wanted to, but I was able to kind of wheel my pole around with all my stuff on it. And I just remember going into my brother's room, and I had been asking the nurses, like, is he doing okay? Can you give me an update? Like, how's it going? And they had told me, he's doing great. Like, he's doing way better than we would have anticipated, considering how like
sick he was.
Yes. Yeah. His body has taken it beautifully. And I walk in the room, and his color was so much different. Like, it was just actual healthy color instead of like
jaundicey.
Yeah, like a yellowy kind of greeny gray. Like, it was crazy that within 24 hours of it going in there, like, you could just see
wow,
his color was so different. So that was nice. I guess sometimes they need to shift organs around to place it. And they said that it fit beautifully. They didn't have to move anything, that it was like the perfect size, that, it went better than they expected. And so it was taking and doing what it needed to do because his color was so improved. So,
and correct me if I'm wrong, with the liver, they take a portion of yours.
So they took 69% of mine. And then they left the remaining part, obviously, and it regenerates. It's one of the only ones that does.
Right.
Yeah. And the cool thing is like, mine, it was a certain size, and my brother, he was 6'4", his was probably bigger than mine, I'm assuming, but my chunk that was given to him will grow to whatever size he needs for his body. So even though it was only so small in my body, it will be even bigger in his because his body needs a little bit bigger.
Well, but and being able to go and lay eyes on him after all of this, and you're obviously worried about yourself, then that person next to you, so you have to be worrying about him too. So being able to go into that room and see him, like you said, and almost a complete change as far as the way he looked.
Yes.
That had to at least give you some relief, I would hope.
Yes. And he immediately started crying, and he was like, thank you so much. I will never be able to thank you enough, type moment. And I was like, it's fine. You don't have to thank me. Like, I don't need you to thank me for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? Like, we're good. And, I forgot to say one thing before the surgery. When I made a decision to test, I made sure to have a conversation with my brother of his why, because I wanted to make sure, like, if I'm going to go through this, I want to make sure that you are not going to leave yourself back in that same position, because some people even still do after liver transplants, even though that's literally going to kill them. And so we had a really good conversation about his why, like what led him down that road, and what he has gone through in therapy and AA and trying to like heal that, and his reassurance of like, I don't want to leave my babies in this world. And so I knew that like this was literally a second chance, and I believed him when he said like, I will never go back to that situation again. And so I knew in that moment, like, this is the start of a second part of his life, of like a life where he can truly be present with his kids and raise them and be present with our family. And we had been texting all up through the surgery, all after the surgery, like way more than we ever have in life. And so the whole situation just brought us even closer.
Well, there's a whole piece of you in there now.
Literally.
Too. And again, what's crazy is that this is not always enough for someone, like even your sacrifice and the decision that you made isn't always enough for some people to completely change that.
Correct.
But it sounds like before this was even on the table, as soon as he heard that he's not going to live, that was really what sparked it. Like him saying, fuck that, I don't want to die and leave my kids.
Yes.
And that's what kickstarted it. So you doing this is just even more motivation, I would imagine, for him. And again, I can't imagine it not bringing you closer. But it's good that he has all that motivation, because whatever was motivating him to drink and to cope in that way, now he has all of these people that love him, you showing up, his kids, everybody being that motivation in a positive way, which can be just as like powerful in the opposite way, in a positive way. So
for sure. I'm sure he felt more supported. And as I talked to him, it's a two-way street, you know what I mean? Like, because he used to be so quiet and reserved, you know, it was not as easy for us to ask him questions and to get him to open up. And through the process of him going through therapy and through AA, like, he really learned how to communicate more with people and to like reach out before he even gets to a point where, you know, he has to go down paths that are not healthy for him. So he changed a lot through that, you know, through this process, which I was grateful for too, because, you know, I can imagine being in somebody's position where they go through all of the pain of donation and then that person not to receive it as a second chance and just to throw it away. Like, that would have been horrible.
Well, it would devastate you, I'm sure. And it would affect your relationship. Absolutely affect your relationship. How could it not?
That would have been like a walk away.
I'm done. I get that.
I can't. I know you're sick, but so it was good to see him. And I would get up and walk to his room. He still was not able to be walked around yet. And, you know, being in the ICU, there's very little sleep. I think I was in the ICU for a day and a half, and then they moved me like a step down floor. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I kind of tricked the nurses because I was like, oh, since my brother's still going to be here, can I just walk to my brother's room? Because they brought a wheelchair, and I was like, I do not want to sit in this wheelchair. Like, I don't want to. And I didn't tell him that. And I was like, can I just walk to my brother's room and tell him that I'm moving whatever and he's like, yeah, sure. And so I like walked there, and I was like, talk to my brother, and I was like, okay, let's just walk to the next portion. And he's like, I got this wheelchair. I really need you to. And I was like, I'm good. I promise. If I feel like I can't do it, then I will sit in the wheelchair. But where are we going, dude? And it was, you know, super close. So it's not like I was walking a marathon, but again, just like I do not want to be in this hospital. I do not want to be in this bed. So I'm going to, because they told me the more you can walk, the better it's going to be for everything. So
yeah, it gets everything moving. And once you, again, it's a checkoff. You love checkoffs.
Yep.
So, you know, once you dot all the I's and cross all the T's, and they're like, well, there's no reason to keep you anymore.
Yeah.
So you were shooting for that.
Yes. And, you know, speaking of the checkoff, one of the things, as you know, is that you have to poop before. Which is not great, especially when you're on pain meds and all of that. And so they would come in like every hour to check on you in the ICU. And then it was like every 2 hours, but sometimes the timing is off with medicines, you know, like they might come in like 30 minutes later when you're trying to sleep and to give you meds. And so I have never been particularly well with lack of sleep. It always makes me super emotional. And they're telling me, listen, you got to poop before you can go home. And so I'm like, I'm going to give it a try. Every time I get up to walk, I'm going to go try. And so like, I didn't feel like I had to, but I was going to try because you never know. And I still had some of the effects of the epidural in there too. So I wasn't feeling a whole lot as well. And so I just remember sitting on the edge of my bed after like another failed attempt and just like sobbing. And the nurse comes in and she's like, are you okay? And I'm like, I just want to poop. And you guys keep asking me if I need to poop and I can't move. And like,
I just want to shit, please.
Yes. Like, for shit's sake, can it just come out?
But it's just that little thing. Like that one little thing that we take for granted in our day-to-day life. Like, oh, I'm just going to have shit today. And then when that's the one thing holding you in the hospital and you're like, well, I just want to go home. Like I've been through enough. I want to see my kids. I want to go home.
So this is like day 3. And they had said they were like, prepare for 7 days, but here's a long checklist of things you have to accomplish before you can leave. Like, you know, whatever. And I'm always like 7 days. Well, okay, well, I bet you I can do it in 6, you know? And so after I had that breakdown, she was so nice. She put a note on my door and it was like, do not interrupt every 4 hours unless it is medically necessary. Like unless you have meds or unless there's a test she has to do, like, please let her sleep, because I was clearly emotionally like a little bit on the edge of things.
Yeah. And you can do that also. Just, I wouldn't recommend it if it's something that you do need checks. Like when I had my flaps, I'm going back to that because that's the experience I have. But when I was a nurse and you're on a certain floor, you have to be checked.
Right.
But you can, as a patient, say, I do not want that, but every 4 hours or whatever. The nurses don't love it. I say they don't love it, but also we kind of do because we're like,
Gives you a
fine,
break.
we can leave her alone.
Yeah.
She's okay.
Yeah.
So as long as everything looked good, like you said, and you were just really wanting to poop and get your meds, I don't see what the big deal would be to do that.
Yeah. And I had no idea that was possible too. So I was glad that she did that because I was able to get a bit more sleep. And sleep was weird after the surgery because you get used to a certain amount of like organs in there and pressure in there. And then when a organ is gone, you obviously can't lay on your stomach after that. But I remember like kind of leaning on my side because I have a terrible back. And so laying on it in one position hurts. So I'm like trying to lay on my side. And I distinctly remember laying on my side and feeling movement and being like, oh, fuck.
Like things are shifting inside. Oh, that's weird.
It was the weirdest, creepiest feeling. And I was like, I'm not doing that again. Like that was terrible. Like, oh, it just.
Ew.
Yeah. So apparently they all fit in there like a puzzle.
Right.
You
and
take
they took
half
a
of
piece
it out.
and it's like,
yeah.
So did they, I actually didn't think about this until just now. Did they have to do an actual incision or a laparoscopic?
Oh, no, it's
an incision, right?
It's from my bra line all the way down around my belly button.
Oh,
it's
wow.
a Maui hook.
Got it.
Like in Moana, Maui's hook.
Make way.
Yeah. Really, once they took the epidural out, I had to transition off of that kind of medication to just like normal pain medication. And again, addiction runs in my family. And so I was like, I don't want to be on pain meds for very long because I want to try and like, avoid any of the things that are going to be potentially, tempting if knowing my genetic history and all of that. And so that was the most painful transition from that to just pain meds because, you can only give pain meds every like 4 hours and then you have to alternate with the second pain med. And so until that second pain med hit, I mean, it was like 8 hours of like, white knuckling.
Agonizing.
It was so painful.
And it makes time slow.
Yes.
So slow. And you're like, when's the next? Well,
and then you're not sleeping on top of that. And
it's horrible.
Yeah.
So that's another thing, advocating for yourself, but also knowing that. So Tylenol and ibuprofen, depending, obviously you had your liver part of it removed. I don't know if that made any difference because some things are filtered through your liver. So maybe not in that situation, but in other surgeries, you can kind of go in between. So you like have this and then in 2 hours you have this and then in 2 hours it's your pain med again. So knowing that and having, again, nurses, they're busy. Having them educate you on those things is really, really important because especially when you leave, trying to keep it all at bay.
Yeah.
Because once it gets high, you're chasing it.
Yep.
Like you're chasing it the entire time. So
1000%. And the nurses were really great. Like, they would tell me like, it's 1 more hour, it's 30 more minutes. Like just hang on. Cause they could tell that I was in so much pain. And so that was probably the worst part of the hospital stay was that. And then I would have to say the other part is, the hospitals, they bring you food whenever they want you to have food. And sometimes you're a lot hungrier and then you're on all that medication and you're waiting for breakfast and it doesn't come for like an hour and a half. And so I would get such bad nausea in the morning and they didn't know if it was nausea from the surgery, from like a symptom.
Because that can be a side effect.
Yeah. And
or
so,
you were just like hungry.
Yeah. And so finally a nurse was like, we have some Uncrustables in the freezer. Would you like one so that you can wait for your breakfast? And I was like, oh my God, please give me an Uncrustable.
I have never wanted one so bad in my fucking life.
Well, I love peanut butter anyways, like peanut butter I love.
That's your jam?
Yes.
Peanut butter jelly
I was going to make that joke, but I was like,
Shit, I got it.
That's too corny. I can't go there, but that was in my head.
I got you.
And so she gave me one and that was so helpful in like, being able to have that in between meals and like not feeling so sick. And so that was one of the other milestones that we cleared is I didn't have the nausea anymore because they were worried that it was a symptom of something larger going on, which was good. Yeah. And so it took 6 days before I could go home. And like I said, they wanted me to stay 7, but I was like, I'm good. I've done everything you asked. Like, what is staying another day going to help? Being in the hospital, the only other hard thing was being away from my kids.
Yeah.
I love my kids. I'm in a very, involved mom. And so FaceTiming is great, but it's not the same. And so I did ask my husband to bring my kids once because during the day they would be at school or they would be with family. And then at night he would pick them up and bring them home because I wanted them to have some sort of normalcy while I was gone.
Absolutely.
And so he stayed with me overnight, like the first night. And then after that, he left. He brought them in. And again, my daughter, so light, so bright, like she's too young. She doesn't know. She's like happy and singing and like, I'm so glad to see you, mama. And then my son just like creeps in the room. And, I had a central line in still. I had a pull. I had lots of stuff still. I think it was like day 3. Just trying to comfort him and be like, it's okay, baby. Like, I'm okay. I'm safe. Like, I'll be home soon. Don't worry. But just being able to see in his face, like that he was worried about me. Like hurt me because I knew that I was doing something for my brother, but it does have impacts on the people that I'm around too. So,
well, and let's not play down that it has an impact on you. Like you literally just had a pretty serious surgery. You put yourself on the back burner even when you're talking about it.
Very
I think
much so.
that's what I say women, but men do it too. If you are like the strong one in your family, and that doesn't mean that your significant other isn't too, but like you said you're a caregiver, you're the one that takes care of everything. So whenever you're in a position once you have to be taken care of, number one, it's uncomfortable as fuck. It feels gross.
Yeah.
And it's like almost going against who you are.
Yeah. I have always been, I was the youngest of 3 boys, and I always ran and kept up with the boys. And so I've always been so physically strong and tough, and always been like, I'm going to do it for myself. Like, I don't need anybody to help me. And so that was one of the biggest takeaways from this situation once I got through, because I still hadn't processed anything emotionally at this point.
Of course not. No, you were still again in the tunnel. Just get through it.
Yeah. Taking the central line out, that was scary to me because I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to, I could bleed out. Like my anxiety just goes worst case. And so they take that out, and I think it's like another 24 hours. And then finally day 6, they're like, okay, do you want to go home? And I'm like, hell yes, please get me out of here. And so I came home, and that's really where like the real world sets in.
Yep.
Yeah. And so you're no longer in a hospital by yourself. You're in the house, and I don't usually cook anyways. But I'm not having to do that, but I'm still with my kids. So I'm still in mommy mode. Like, do you have homework? What do we need to do? I can't physically at this point get up and move around very easily because my whole abdomen was cut open, but still trying to like do stuff for them. And then, they would go off to school, and I'd kind of just be sitting there. And that's when like the processing starts of like, holy crap. And unfortunately, I got a tape allergy from,
I've seen them on people. They're horrible.
Yeah, I'll show you the picture afterwards. But I started noticing, because they tape you all the way down the incision, like on the edges of each tape, like got really red and started itching. And so I contact them, and they're like, okay, just take the tape off, which was not fun either. I had to have my husband help me with that because I tried to pull one off and I almost got lightheaded and fainted.
It's like waxing yourself. I'm not doing it.
It was seeing the incision.
Oh, that was the part.
Yeah. Like I had like glanced at it before, but it was like to stare at it long enough to pull the tape off is to really take it all in. And so he helped me take that off. But the whole torso, like 3/4 of my torso became covered with this huge rash. And it was like a rash that was messing with my nerves. So I couldn't have any shirt on my belly because anytime the shirt moved across that rash, it would be so like, it's like, the sound of chalk, nails on chalk, like that cringe. Like that's how I felt. And it was a nerve pain that like none of the meds were helping because it was the nerve pain. And so I would wait till my kids went off to school, and then I would literally just sit in a sports bra and a cardigan, because then I wouldn't have anything on my stomach to be able to like rub across my skin. And then when they would come home, I would put it back on, because I didn't want them to have to see the incision. So that was like the second worst part of it was that.
Did you do that because you were worried about them, like seeing it and getting more concerned or being more worried about you? Yeah,
I knew my son. And I did show my son once because he's very active, and I was really worried that he would jump on me and accidentally hurt me. So I did show him once. I'm like, here's why you have to be very gentle with me. And he did not take it well. He was like, whoa, he does not handle medical stuff well. And so, yeah, again, he's like, worried about, and he could see I could barely walk, like getting up out of the couch was painful. And I'd like shuffle like an old lady because your whole torso's like been cut open. And so he was very cautious with me and very like, are you okay? What can I get you? And, things like that. So I did show them the once, but then after that, I was like, they don't need to see that constantly. Like they need to know that I'm getting better.
Yeah.
And so during the day, it's so weird how tired you get after the surgery. You're still not sleeping well at night because you can only sleep on your back. And so I would literally get up in the middle of the night and kind of like walk, do some laps, and then try and lay down because I have a bad back. And so it would be like, I would be working on something during the day, and then all of a sudden, like being punched in the face, I'd be so exhausted. Like, I just have to sleep. If I don't sleep right now, I am going to cry. And so I would go take a cat nap for like 20, 30 minutes. And then I'd get back up and I'd have like a couple of hours of like, be fine. And then again, like punch in the face, I'd have to take a nap. And so in the first couple of days, I was like cat napping, like, 3 or 4 times during the day. And then I got to the point where it was like twice a day. And then it was like one nap. And so I could tell that my stamina was getting better, but physically I was in a house. I couldn't leave because they were worried, like, if you get sick, your immune system's already compromised right now. So try not to have a whole lot of visitors, try not to leave. And it's the holiday time because it was Thanksgiving break that we did this. And so I just personally have never done well with isolation and not being out and talking to people. And I'm a teacher. I interact with hundreds of people all day, and that's how I prefer it. And so physically knowing that I was in pain, that I was not capable of things anymore. Before the surgery, I was in the best shape I had ever been. I had just run a mile in 6:32 the week before.
Oh my God.
Yeah, which I didn't even do in high school. And so I went from being in the best physical shape of my life, feeling the most confident and the best about myself, to being isolated, in pain. And then on top of that, like I said, we removed the gallbladder. Anything that I ate that was anything fatty or fried or whatever, which I don't even eat that much of, but like couldn't eat a burger because I would get so bloated, like immediately within 30 minutes, it looked like I was 6 months pregnant. That, what that does to your like mental viewpoint of yourself, of like the scar and then being bloated, and it just mentally was a lot. And so during the day, I would pretend if the kids were around, like, I'm okay, we got life, we're doing things. But then when I was by myself or at night, and especially because I wasn't sleeping, and so I was just walking around the house sometimes, like I just had so much anger that I wasn't dealing with. Anger at my brother a little bit, because if it weren't for him, then it wouldn't be in this situation. But also like anger at myself. Like I felt like the giving tree. Like I had given some of the best parts of myself away. And it was so hard for me in that moment to see that like things were going to get better, and that things already were getting better, because all I could do was just sit there in the pain of it. And like just the mental thoughts of like, look at you now, you can't even walk and you look gross, and just all that kind of stuff. And so there was quite a few weeks where I was like, this is the worst. I wish I hadn't done this, which is not true. I'm glad I did it. I don't ever regret that. But it was really hard and really dark for a while.
I want you to know that that's human, like that part of it. And, we talked that you have listened to previous episodes. Yeah. And so you've heard a few of us go through that. But I think almost everyone that's endured a serious surgery, especially if it alters how your body functions, if you're a physical person, how you physically look, women especially, everything changes. Yeah. I had the same thoughts, like, I wish I didn't do this. Why did I do this? And it wasn't even life-saving for someone else. It was more for my personal benefit. Yeah. I just think that you were going through a normal thing that everyone goes through when they've endured something like that. So that is such a human thing. I appreciate you being so like candid about it, but know that that is human. And it's, I think people don't realize that like it is perfectly fucking fine to have a pity party in that moment, and or several, because I would just be like you said, I'd put on for my kids, and then when they were gone, I'd fucking cry. You couldn't even do a shower sometimes because you can't shower by yourself depending. And so I'd just be upset or be emotional or be sad or be depressed. And I realized, again, now that I've had a few in retrospect, it's okay to give yourself that space to be sad, to be angry. And it's still kind of a grieving process. Life isn't the same
it was
anymore.
Me finally processing all of the emotions that I had put off for so long, that I did not let myself examine. I was now being like slapped in the face with, and I've never dealt well with anger. And I also felt like I couldn't talk to my brother about it because I didn't want him to feel guilty that I was in this situation. I couldn't talk to my parents about it because I didn't want them to be upset with my brother for me being in this situation. And so I could talk to my husband about it, obviously, but I need to be out in life and talking to lots of people. And when I went inside to myself, that was a mistake I made. And so I was there for probably about 4 weeks. And then I was like, I have got to talk to somebody. I need therapy. Like, I've got to work through this because I am not in a good spot. And I know that I'm not in a good spot and I need to get some help. And so hindsight, I should have opened up more or asked people for help or asked them to come over and sit with me and chat with me, so that I wasn't by myself and kind of sitting in the misery and stewing in it. That's what I would do now if I was ever in that situation again. But unfortunately, I didn't until it was.
No, but you learned something from it. And now you're telling your story, and hopefully other people understand, like, you don't need a ton of people. You just need a couple people that you can. It's hard to let people see you vulnerable though, too. Yeah. Like, hey, will you come over? And I might cry and be really upset or angry or these things. Especially if you're the one in the friendships, or like you've said, in your relationships where you're the tough one all the time. Yeah. It's really hard to let people see that.
And that's the thing too, is I have always been told that I have high expectations of people. And I think I was just kind of waiting, hoping that people would come to me and that I didn't have to ask because they just knew that I would need it. And I have also learned in this process that like people are not mind readers. They don't know what you don't tell them and they can't guess it. So if you really like if it's important for you to have something, then you have to speak what it is and not feel bad for speaking whatever it is that you need, because otherwise, you just don't get it. And so I was left feeling like, I know I have friends. I know I have lots of people around me, but they were viewing me as like, oh, you're so strong.
She's fine.
She's fine. She's healing. And I really just wanted some connection, like people to talk and be around. And so I was supposed to be out originally for 8 weeks. But I begged them to let me go back at 6, partly because I needed to be around people. Of course you did. But also financially, like we could not afford for me to be out any longer. I had run out of days. And so I was then paying out of my paycheck for each day that I was gone. And so the first week that I went back was so nice to see all my kids and all my friends and to be out. But I definitely should not have been there because I can just remember I was so exhausted by Friday morning. The bell rang to let all the kids come in to first period. And I was literally sitting on the floor in the hallway. I was like, I don't even have enough energy to stand right now. And thankfully, the kids that I had that year were so amazing that they could see that I was trying and that I was there and I was teaching, but I was sitting and that's all I could do at the time. You know what I mean? Like normally I would be up and about and walking around. And so they really took it in a stride and kind of worked with me in terms of like, didn't have any problems, didn't have any, issues.
You're just giving me hope for the youth because there's some days I'm like, is everything going to be okay? But like these
I'm
kids
still like that some days too, but I had a great group of kids that year. So I went back before I should have, but again, being with people was the right decision because I needed to have that interaction to not be so isolated and alone and by myself. Being of service again, like to be like, I love being a teacher and I love interacting with the kids. And so really finding those things that brought me joy again and like actively doing those things was good. And then I could finally I remember my daughter was like, I can tell you're feeling better because you're not walking like an old lady anymore.
You're like, thanks, honey.
And I was like, I am. Thank you for noticing. So just, knowing that I was, even if it felt dark, sometimes mentally still, physically, I was getting better, that I would not always remain in that dark spot, that there were things that I could do to get myself better, like being around people and doing the things I loved again and talking and communicating and asking for what I needed. So it was a great learning lesson of it, when you need help, ask for it, but also to like, I know it's so trite, you got to feed yourself before you can feed other people and like put your own oxygen mask on first. And mentally, like, I know that, but now I really, really know it. Like if I don't have anything, then I can't give anything. And so it is just as important to make sure that I'm mentally okay so that I can continue doing those things that make me happy and that serve other people as well.
Well, and this doesn't just relate to surgery. This is just hitting hard shit in life. I mean, grief, surgeries, loss, anything that might really knock you for a loop. And it sounds like this was one of the hardest things you've ever endured.
Yeah.
And we've talked, there's other things that you've had that you've went through that are hard. But I truly believe that every hard thing prepares you for the next hard thing.
Sure.
And maybe in that moment you feel like this is the hardest ever. And not to say you wish that later in life, but everything can be a learning experience and you can take the positive from it. It's so hard to see when you're surrounded by the dark, when you're surrounded by the pain, that there is a light at the end. All you need to have is that one little hope or that knowledge. And now that you've done it, there's light at the end. It's still hell to walk through, but no matter what, you can get to the other side of it.
For sure. And this serves me as a teacher now too, because now I've been through enough things that have been hard and have pulled me down and have gotten through the other side and have found joy in the other side. And that doesn't take away from what you've been through, but that just means that there's something there that you have to focus on to get through. And I have used my own experiences when I am teaching, when I see those kids that are struggling, and have personally told them, like, I know it's hard right now. And I know you feel like it's never going to get better. Like, trust me, I have been there, but I promise you there are happier things on the other side and you will get there. And so it was just proof of you living the tale, walking the walk, and like mentally knowing like what I'm telling them, I know for sure that it's true because I've been there.
Well, you're using your journey to help others now, which is, again, taking the power back from that thing that was difficult. So, and helping kids like them, because as a teenager, especially, that you think the world's coming to an end. And then how cool is it to have, you sound like a badass teacher, honestly. Were you one of the, when those who teach can't, like, I have all my teacher friends, I'm like, I could never. And they're like, I could never be a nurse. I'm like, I get it. Like,
yeah.
Is that you? So,
no, I could never be a nurse.
Well, I could never be a teacher. So thank you for what you do.
Of course. I love it.
So obviously now we're what, couple years out from that. And how is your brother? How are you? Is there anything that's, changed significantly? Obviously, you just told me about like your personal experience, but like with your relationship, how's he doing physically? How are you guys all doing as a family now?
He is doing great. I mean, he took it amazingly. He showed zero signs of rejection. They were able to taper his meds down. So now he's on like the lowest dose, which he'll always have to be on for the rest of his life. But he physically is in such a better place. And I even had conversations with him, I guess it was like a year ago, where we really kind of talked about it like, golly, this time last year really sucked. Like we were both healing and we would text each other and be like, this is what I'm experiencing. What are you? And his healing journey took way longer than mine because he was sicker. But he and I are more communicative now, like we still talk, not every day like we used to when we were going through it, but, it's a reaching out of like, hey, how's it going? I haven't talked to you in a while. Like, love you, sis, or whatever. And, we've always had a joking relationship where, it's kind of like, if I like you, then I'm going to pick on you and make fun of you type thing. And of course it's big brother.
Language.
Yeah. Big brother, little sister. But he got me a cookie recently that said, I love your stupid face. And I had it sitting on the counter and my daughter comes up and reads it. And she's like, who would give you this cookie? Who would say you have a stupid face? Like she was so like put off by it. And I was like, oh, I can tell you who did it. It was Uncle Bo. And she was like, what? Like, why would you? And that just shows you the difference between her relationship with her brother and mine with him. But I've always been, kind of joking with him. And
well, you had 3 brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah. You had to be tough. And
so
smart ass.
So for sure. We're definitely smart asses with comments back and forth. But, like every year on the anniversary, we definitely are like, take note of the day and like, hey, it's another year round. I'm glad you have it. And, for me, just seeing him with his kids, and his kids have grown up now 4 years later, and they know that he had surgery. They know that I had surgery and that I gave him a liver. They don't know the whys, but they do know that like Auntie Lauren saved their life. That's all that I need, is just to see him with them and to see him be an active father. He's still working his AA. He's a sponsor for other people. Like just to see him living his life. That's all I could ask for.
And taking the second chance.
Yeah, for sure. And really like taking it to heart of like, he was on death's door and now he's not, and what he can do with that. So.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, this story is so intriguing to me. Yeah. I've again, seen things with alcoholism and with my own family experiences. I've never had to endure this. Again, if I could help anybody with the stigma portion of it, I think that it's so cool that you were able to talk about this, and that now you've also become an outlet for him that he maybe didn't have before when he was drinking because of the stigma.
Yeah.
And so again, I just want to encourage people that may have potentially issues with this. You can get help. People will listen. And even if sometimes it may not be your family, but a close friend, don't be scared of that. Like everyone has their shit. We all have our problems. And the sooner you're able to get help, or even therapy, if that's what it takes to talk about it, that's what I want to encourage people to do from this. But you just sound like a very selfless, badass, cool person.
Yeah.
And I also love that you were human and you said like, I didn't want to do this at first, because again, I think that's a perfectly understandable reason why you wouldn't. Yeah. But I do want you to know, this is what I've been thinking about for half the time I've been hearing you talk and watching you. If teaching doesn't work out, you could be like a Christina Applegate in her younger years, look-alike for sure. I don't know if you've ever heard that.
You know who I used to get all the time was Jennifer Lawrence.
Okay, a little bit.
All the time. And I was like, I don't see it, but I'll take it. Thank you.
I think Christina Applegate. But like when she was like smoking, she's a little older now. That, she still looks good. But just saying, your face is everything.
Thank you.
But is there anything else that you would like to share or that you want to tell anybody or you feel good with?
No, I just reiterating like, the most important thing is that you do what you need to do, and that there are so many resources. Like it does not have to be secrets kill, literally. And so it does not have to be something that's shameful or that something that you have to hide. Like there are so many places to go get help, and that there is life that could be so much better. So even if you feel like I can't stop, like there are things that you can do, and there are people to help you that gets you to that spot. And it could be so much better. You could feel so much better. You can have such a better life and better relationships, and that, that there is that positive on the other side.
And it doesn't have to take something serious as getting, hey, death, you know, death's knocking at the door.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be something as serious as, oh, all of my family isn't talking to me.
Yeah.
If you find yourself like, you can go online and find these. And actually on my blog, I always try to put little things that are helpful. I can find a few of the things, even the questionnaires that they ask in counseling and things. And if you're answering yes to a lot of those, maybe that's a step that you might need to consider that, which again is totally okay.
Yeah.
So, well, I appreciate you being on here, Lauren.
you.
If you want to be on our show, I'm still looking for guests. She was kind enough to reach out to me, and I'm so glad you did. Hit us up at plottwiststillalive@gmail.com or follow us on Facebook or social media under the same name. And I think we got to end this the right way.
Yep.
So let's do a high five.
Okay.
Still alive and do your evil laugh.